right. It's Eric Schreiber, part two.
The sequel.
Hey, wait, I see your book right behind you.
Oh, well, yes. Thank you. Very observant.
Yes, was that planned? It just seems very coincidental.
It happens to be in the frame when I do video conferencing and things, so a little bit on purpose.
Yes, I like that. You don't see anything behind me, do you?
Just a giant Nell team sign.
Yes, yes. It's a little bit boring, but buy or sell, trust Scott Nell, the realtor from hell. But hey, since we already brought it up, Eric, so glad to have you here. When I first met you, we were doing sushi, and I got to tell you, I realized that you're definitely my kind of guy to hang out with because you made me laugh the whole time. And then while we're talking, you're giving all this great information, but you're a lot of fun. And what did you tell me? You told me you represent some World Wrestling Federation guys too?
Yeah, as a one of the things I do is I represent some professional wrestlers.
Uh-huh. So what's that like? Come on, give me a little bit. You can't just say that like, oh, whatever,
It's
everyone does it.
it's a little bit crazy. It's a very crazy world. The fans are
Mhm.
absolutely over the top. I mean, these guys are huge, giant men, and
Uh-huh.
most of them are absolutely as nice as you can be, friendly to fans. Nice to me, treat me well. I've been
Hmm.
backstage at all kinds of wrestling events, and it's funny because you see them on TV and they're absolute enemies. I'm going to destroy you, and then they're eating lunch together in the cafeteria afterwards. So
Yeah. I love it. When you were telling me about that, I was thinking, I'm going to be real nice to him just so I can be invited to one of these events.
I'd love to have you when they're in town. I've had a lot of people have a really good time going to the events. We've actually
Yeah.
sat one or two times we were in the front row, and a good buddy of mine missed taking an elbow to the head a couple times. So you got to
Uh-huh.
watch out. It's worse than a splash zone, but those are big men moving very fast.
Well, I love it. I love it. And then I also remember that you were talking about your love of is it Star Wars, right?
Yeah, my license plate is Baby Yoda, BABYODA.
I forgot that. I
You
love
know, 25, 30 years ago, I would have been mocked for it and, called all kinds of terrible names. But in this world now, it's totally cool to like superheroes and
Mhm.
sci-fi and Star Wars and stuff.
Isn't that great? How, I mean, growing up, I remember thinking, okay, red hair, freckles, gangly. I was in theater and I'm thinking like, gosh, what a triple threat for not going out with this guy. And then as I started getting more comfortable in my skin, because I wasn't an athlete, I wasn't some big scholar or something. I was just, more of a average creative kid. And as I started just leaning into who I was, all of a sudden I went, you know what? I think these people actually appreciate the geek that I am. And so I lean into that a little bit more.
Tall redhead with freckles. I wouldn't know anyone else like that. So
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to have you move into the center of the screen a little bit more now that we've seen your book. There we go. Oh, yes. This is perfect. I'm telling you, this is right over your shoulder now. So before we get to any real estate help, tell us a little bit about your book, too.
Oh, okay. So a little bit about me. I'm an estate planning and probate attorney. We also do corporate business and real estate, uh, helping clients of all kinds, small, medium-sized businesses, individuals, businesses, families, some celebrities. And so our goal is to make sure that everyone is protected. We're a small firm of three attorneys, my father, myself, and my brother. So we would like to say, let our family protect your family.
I love that.
And so the most important goal of a probate attorney, or sorry, of an estate planning attorney, is to avoid becoming a probate attorney. Because
Uh-huh.
probate is a very public, costly, and expensive uh, matter that generally takes 18 months to 2 years if you're lucky. That's how the court divides your property when you pass away. So
Right.
the point of the book is called Do I Really Need a Will? It really explains sort of to laymen and non-lawyers why you need a will and a trust and how having that will avoid having to go to probate court, which is
Hmm.
what we always try to avoid whenever possible. Of course, in your world, probate and real estate, or even trusts and real estate, crossover all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's what made you decide to write the book. And so how do you use that book? Do you ever go out and you speak? with that kind of material, or tell us more about what you do. It's
Okay.
like
Well,
ongoing.
I've given lectures. I also, one of the things I do is I work with a lot of special needs families to do special needs trusts and
Oh,
conservatorships.
nice.
Um, and so I do give speaking. A couple times I've lectured to university classes too on contract law. But
Hmm.
with my book, I mostly am happy to give it to anybody that wants it. That's
Hmm.
professionals, that's clients, that's individuals. It's not a long book. It's designed to be a fairly easy read, just to educate you as to why you need these documents and how we try to avoid going to probate whenever possible. So when I go to networking, I give it to people. I go to lunches with other professionals. I give it to them, and I say, "Here's a few copies. If you have any clients that might be interested in it, if you think this could help someone." A lot of financial advisors are always trying to convince their clients, please have a trust and a will as part of your overall financial plan.
Yeah,
So that's sort of the point of the book, is to educate people on why they need these documents.
that's great. And it's like a more elaborate business card. It's like
Yeah,
heck with business cards. Here's a book that's going to have more value. This is something
yeah,
you're
we
not going to flick and get rid of.
we call them in some networking groups. I mean, we call them fancy business cards.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. So one of the things I really liked about you when I met you, I told you, is just that you swim in different waters than most people I know. But the thing that impressed me the most, because the lunch was great, yes, got it. But being in the office with you, with a client, and talking to the client, and seeing the way that you handled the client, were so sensitive to this person, and so open and communicative. I just liked your style. And at the end of it, it was just so great to see how that you're not a high pressure guy. You're a let's inform you kind of guy, and then make sure that they're comfortable, and then you're ready to go to bat. And so I really liked your style. I'm just going to say that, and
Oh, well, thank you.
seeing you firsthand.
It's the reason that we work so well together, I think, because the client loved you and you were the one that gave her a hug at the end of the meeting. And so again, you also had that made her feel very comfortable. And when she's a naturally concerned client and, had some issues with other professionals, she felt instantly comfortable with you and was just very grateful that the way you spoke to her and treated her as well. And that's, again, why I like working with you, because we kind of feel the same way about the importance of the client and the client's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I don't usually give a hug at the end. I mean, when I got up, I was like, "How do I leave without giving her a hug?" I mean,
You didn't give me a hug, so
after this awesome conversation, well, I didn't want to hug you,
yeah.
yeah. No, but that was nice. 'Cause to me, it's not just about business. I love that we're doing business, or we're making money to support our families. Absolutely, I love making money. But I also like the fact that it's so rewarding. And so that's what gets me up at night, or not gets me up in the morning, and really gets me going. It gets me up at night. This just keeps me up at night, being real, doing nice things. But I do really enjoy knowing that we can really help someone and guide them through it, treat them, act in their best interest. It means a lot to me. But you know what? Enough about the real estate heaven. Let's talk about the real estate hell, because you've done, how many years has your family been in the business?
Well, this is my 28th year in practice, but my father, who's my partner, is his 58th year in practice, and the firm has existed in one form or another for over 55 years.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a lot, and I love the fact that it's let our family protect your family. That says a lot about you guys, just as individuals and as professionals. I love that. But tell us something about to give us a taste of real estate hell. That's the name of the podcast. So we can sit there and gush all over each other and just be all nice and sweet and stuff. But let's hear something a little sticky.
All right, I got a few now. As I understand it, there's what, 7 layers of hell. So this one I'm beginning in is probably about layer 6.
Okay.
This one needs a little setup, but it ends with a broker facing criminal charges, which is something that you're never going to have. But I will go through the story.
Uh,
So let me start with the fact that for investment properties, we always, well, for all properties, you should either hold it in an LLC, a corporation, or a trust. You should
mhm,
never, unless it's a very weird circumstance, hold property in your own name. And in fact, for rental properties like the one I'm about to discuss, the client
mhm,
had it in an LLC and then had the LLC ownership in her trust, which is what we advise most clients to do. So
mhm,
to set the story up, this is a this is a client who was an heiress, a Belgian heiress. So to
Okay.
give you an idea, and it's kind of funny because she actually had to move from Brussels to London because she felt Brussels was too expensive. But she bought this really nice property in a Los Angeles area. She visited sometimes, but she wanted to use it as a rental. Of course, she put it in her LLC, which was a good thing.
Hmm.
This property had a gorgeous deck on the back. But the problem was is this property was at the top of a canyon, and the canyon went all the way through. Well, unbeknownst to her when she bought the property, because it was never disclosed on the forms when she bought it, what the seller was required to but never did, was that any noise you made in the backyard was grossly amplified as it went down the canyon. And
Hmm.
so it sounded like even the most basic thing, like ping pong, sounded like cannon shots.
Uh-huh.
So she had no idea when she bought it. Again, she was a foreign national. Seemed like a really nice house at the time. And again, the seller never disclosed to her that there was this noise problem. Well, there was
Hmm.
more than a noise problem. There was a neighbor downstream down the canyon who really hated the noise.
Hmm.
And he was also very good friends with the local police.
Oh gosh.
And so our client ended up renting the property to, of all people, a professional football player who
Hmm.
had loud, wild parties on this back deck.
Hmm.
Well, you can imagine that if a ping pong table sounds like a cannon, what loud, blaring music and dozens of people having a huge party on this back deck sounded like.
Right.
So, what should happen? The neighbor is infuriated, and we have dozens and dozens of emails to the local police officer who's his friend saying, hey, the police were visiting every other day. They were citing the house. I mean, this was just misery. And she had no idea. Mind you, her broker was running her LLC because she was out of town, out of the country.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So what had to happen is that you know, we looked into remediation, and there weren't a whole lot of good options. It would have been very expensive to put up sound screens. Well, ultimately, she had to sue the former owner because
Hmm.
he never disclosed all these major problems about the house. Major owner, we couldn't get him because he was hardly ever in town. But of all things, he was on really good terms with the person that got the mail at our house, and then asked them because his mail kept coming to the old address, so he would ask us to periodically deliver the mail. So what did
Uh-huh.
we do? We had our process server stick the summons and complaint in with his other mail, and when they came over, oh yeah, here's your mail. Oh, by the way, here's the summons and complaint. So for our client, the case had a happy ending. We settled the case with the other side. Got enough money to remediate the sound by putting up some sound screens and some vegetation and stuff. But it got worse for our broker because even though she wasn't an owner, she was listed as a manager of the LLC. So
Hmm.
she actually got put up on criminal charges, criminal noise and nuisance charges. And luckily, all those got dropped, and the neighbor kind of calmed down once the noise was somewhat remediated. But I mean, it was just miserable for this poor woman who had no idea that her house, had essentially a sound tunnel coming out the back of it, and then renting it to a football player made it even worse.
Wow. It's interesting because some people think they don't have to disclose that kind of stuff, but anything that substantially affects the value of the property, you got to disclose that. So I'm
Yes.
surprised that they didn't because they could have just disclosed that and then the people would have thought, nah, it can't be that bad. And then, but it
Not
was
only that,
disclosed
but
already.
again, there was a litany of police complaints and reports
Oh
on the
boy.
property before we bought it. So
Hmm.
it's not like the owner didn't know this happened. He knew it was happening, but he just figured, no one's going to know the wiser.
Wow. Well, that was a big mistake. And the fact that you were able to hand off the summons with the through your own mail, that's
His mail.
hysterical.
Yeah, that was we
That's
couldn't
hysterical.
get him, couldn't get him, couldn't get him. And said, well, I know the guy that delivers his mail every month, because he's not around all that often. I said, oh, we deliver this with the mail. He said, oh yeah, sure. So we got him served that way.
You crack me up. You are so much more interesting than most people I talk to.
Oh, well,
You
I
really,
appreciate that.
that's awesome. So I'm going to call that one seven layers of hell. Just so you
So
know.
I thought it was 6, but you know, anytime you get the police involved and you know
Hmm.
brokers getting criminally cited and NFL players causing problems, it at least makes for an interesting story.
Perfect, perfect. Well, tell me another one.
Okay,
You're
well,
here for a reason.
yeah. So this one is fairly near and dear to your heart because this one you and I are working on together.
Okay.
So I will give the full backstory because you came in middle of the picture. So
Hmm.
in the early 60s, a gentleman and his wife bought a piece of property in Los Angeles. Everything was fine. In 1967, he moved his sister and her 7 children out from Texas to Los Angeles to live with him. Again, totally fine, very happy. They all lived on the property in harmony. As you and I know, it's 3 homes on that one piece of property. So, what should happen? In 1985, this gentleman passed away. Okay. In 1993, his sister, the mother of the 7, he had no children. He had a wife who predeceased him. The mother passed away in 1993. And nothing happened until 2024. When the children, now, of course, fully grown adults, decided they simply couldn't live together anymore and just couldn't stand living in the same space. So the gentleman died in 1985, and we got around to filing the probate in 2024. So we're
Hmm.
talking 40 years. Now, again, for the same reason, we always advise people to hold homes in a trust. There was no trust here. He had a real simple, like, you know, stationery store, 3 page, I leave everything to my sister kind of will. Again, this is all public record, so I'm not giving away any confidence. And I would
Hmm.
never discuss anything that's in a court file or that's confidential.
Sure.
This is all public record. So again, gentleman died in 1985. His will left everything to his sister, who died in 1993. The family just simply lived there till to 2024. Well, you know, again, along, and so had he put this home in a trust, we wouldn't have had to go to a probate, which is where I'm at right now. We had to file a probate, and we're right in the middle of the probate. And of course, in the probate, the home needs to be sold. So I said, well, who's the best broker I know? So then I called you, and you and I have met with the client. We're going to be listing the property soon and moving this case along. But
Hmm.
it's actually not as uncommon as you would think to see a situation where a family, someone has died decades before, and nobody got around to doing anything about it. Because
Wow.
I mean, there's not, unless you notify the county that someone has passed away,
Uh-huh.
nobody knows. I mean, and so the title to this property, this guy acquired it in the early 60s, and it just sat there and sat there and sat there. And now it's 2024, 2025. Now we have to go through a full blown probate, sell the home, and then split the money amongst the heirs. And I can say is luckily they did something about it because, you know, we're splitting it up amongst 7, 8 people. But if that generation were to die off, we'd have to be splitting this up amongst 15, 20, 25 people. I've had probates where we had 40 or 50 heirs inherit because so many generations had passed away that the children and the grandchildren all finally took in their parents' place. So, I mean, and we've seen the condition of the house that you and I are working on now. It could use a little work. Uh,
Hmm.
and so, I mean, I guess that's its own version of hell is just you sit there and you just kind of ignore it and never do anything about it. But eventually, if it's not in a trust, it's going to end up in the court system. And again, it happens to the very thing we want to avoid, which is having to probate it, because
Right.
probate's expensive and it's time consuming and it's public, which is something
And,
we
and
all
it's
want to avoid.
and it's so stressful too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So how does it work that it cannot be discovered? Is it because you have someone paying the property taxes and handling things on their own, and so no one knows different because it's being handled?
Right. The property taxes, as long as they're not delinquent, the county has no idea. And you're supposed to, by law, when someone's an owner of a property or even a trustee dies, you're supposed to notify the county assessor, but lawyers know that,
Hmm.
brokers know that, accountants and financial managers probably know that, but to the average person, they just figured out, well, okay, my uncle died, my mom died, we're all living here, I'll just keep writing checks for the property taxes, and no one's the wiser. I mean, unless
Hmm.
there's you're supposed to, but you're supposed to drive 65 on the freeway too, but no one does that either. So it's the kind of thing where it just goes on and on and on and on, and until there's a problem, no one knows there's a problem.
Absolutely. Well, I've never heard of 40 years, a 40-year probate.
Yeah, it's for almost exactly 40 years from when he died until they actually got around to filing the probate. And I think that had they all been able to, continue living that way, they might have never filed a probate. I mean, it might have just gone from generation to generation to generation.
Then you get to an 80-year probate.
I'd love to be around to see that.
You haven't seen that yet? So
Not
40 is
yet.
a big one. 40 is a big one. You know what the interesting thing is that normally speaking, it takes a long time to get material. I've already got so much on you because you're so interesting.
Well,
But
thank
I
you.
do want to hear one more because we got 7 layers of hell. Eric Schreiber and the World Wrestling Federation. We have the 40-year probate. Give us one more. I just want to give one more to tap into.
Okay, well, I got two, and they're both short. I'm just trying to think what's more interesting. So, I guess one time we were involved in a syndication development deal, and what had happened is this was an old historical building, and the way it was located, it was hard to get the construction materials in and out. It was hard to get the the machines in and out, and the contractor wanted to be efficient. Well, lo and behold, he said to them, the county, the city actually said, you know, I think I found an old door that was original to the building.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to cut this original door out, could I do this on this historical building and move my equipment in and out? And they said, oh yeah, if it was historically there, of course you can. So amazingly enough, somehow he was able to find a door that happened to be in this historical building, and make his contracting much more efficient.
Okay.
And then I can tell you another one real quick. That's just
Sure.
a mini story. So this one was my father and my partner's story, not mine. But
Uh-huh.
there was a developer that was selling. This family sold these small homes to a developer who wanted to bulldoze them and make an apartment building. Well, in LA County, as you know, people have to leave voluntarily, and you don't want squatters. So there were 5 little homes, and what happened is the developer would walk over to the tenants, hand them a check. The minute they took their check and left the premises, he had a bulldozer on site and bulldozed each house to the ground as the check was handed over to make sure no squatters got in the building. So it was literally a bulldozer and a check to get these people out of the property, just to
Uh-huh.
make sure that they could develop what they wanted to without squatters.
Hold on, I gotta write down. A bulldozer and a check.
So those are like levels like 1, 2, hell, not really the 6 and 7s I started with, but
Oh no, those are fun though. Those are fun because I'm a bulldozer and a check. So you literally handed it off and to keep squatters from coming in.
the one once the tenant was out and the check was in hand, the bulldozer was right there to knock the house down to make sure nobody, because I guess word gets out really fast when there's empty properties, and so they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make 100% sure that nobody was getting in that property and it was going to be flattened to the ground so he could develop as soon as possible.
That's classic. That's classic. I like the way he's thinking. I think that's the way my wife thinks too. She's always thinking, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do this? Well, why don't we'll bring a check, we'll hand it off, and then the bulldozer comes in right then. And she would say that, and I would laugh, and then it actually would happen. That's the way it would go down.
People, you got to know people who get things done.
Yes, well, that's my wife for sure, for sure. My wife and you. And so, well, listen, that was great. That's really that's it for now. This is what I wanted to get.